And now a newspaper in France is putting more fuel on the fire of Muslim outrage by publishing a satirical cartoon of the Prophet Mohammed. The country has already decided to close embassies and schools abroad, fearing a large backlash. All right, let's discuss this further now with Pierre Guerlain, a professor of political science at the University Nanterre-La Défense. Good to see you today. Thank you for coming on the program. Straight to my question for you. This publication comes after a week of deadly protests all across the world, of course sparked by this anti-Islam film. Are we talking about a case of bad timing here, bad decisions being made to let this caricature go out into the public domain?
Actually, you have two issues here. One is freedom of expression, and the other one is responsibility. By choosing to publish these caricatures right now, they're adding fuel to the fire, and personally, I think it's not very reasonable, it's not responsible. Now, you can defend freedom of expression, but you also have to be aware of what you're doing when you publish something. In the same way as the movie that was made in the United States was not very subtle, and its intention was incendiary. Clearly here, the context is very detrimental to this sort of publication.
But so you talk about the freedom of speech, and that's all well and good, but here we have France shutting down its embassies and schools abroad, fearing a backlash over this satirical caricature cartoon. Is it worth putting people in danger just for the freedom of speech?
Well, you know, it's not just the caricatures or the film that are actually causing all these attacks and trouble. You have, on the one hand, a political context, on the other hand, which was addressed by the previous speakers from America, but on the other hand, you also you have the freedom of expression as a value in the West. This is something which should be defended. But within a specific context, publishing caricatures or a movie can be a very bad move. So here you have a clash between two imperatives. This being said, French law is problematic as far as freedom of expression is concerned.
Well, when you talk about the freedom of expression, though, in French law, I mean, satire mocking Islam is accepted in the press, but a gathering to protest the notorious anti-Islam film won't be given police permission. Do you think that's just going to further inflame the situation?
Well, it's probably going to inflame the situation for a very small number of people. The majority of Muslims in France do not agree with violent attacks. What the whole situation is creating is a kind of confusion between the huge majority of Muslims who are non-violent, they don't want to attack anyone, and a few groups of people who are violent or who want to demonstrate in a violent way. And it creates a confusion with the situation of the extreme right and some fundamentalist groups within the Muslim community, which are very, very small numbers and a minority within this Muslim community.
Well, I mean, that is what people say, though. That is what people say. It typically is the outspoken minority and the quiet majority that don't, you know, that's why we're getting such an outspoken case here, basically with the minority really raising their voices here. But can I ask you, just yesterday, another provocative publication was banned in the French media, of course, that of Britain's Kate Middleton's topless photos. Why isn't freedom of speech in effect for that?
Well, actually, what the law says is that when people are targeted as individuals, freedom of speech does not apply to slander. The problem within French law is that some categories of speech are protected in the name of historical truth. Other categories of speech are not protected. So there's a kind of ambiguity, which, for example, does not exist in American law. But then you also pay a price for freedom of expression, and freedom of expression and what happens in foreign policy are two different phenomena. Freedom of expression can be one way for people who deliberately want to target communities to attack them, and it has a negative impact. As a value, it's not bad when it's within the frame of a given society. The answer to whatever I said is more speech in a democratic society. And this is what the US does within its borders. Now, what it does outside its borders in terms of its relations with the Muslim world is something totally different. Unfortunately, you have this clash of imperatives there, and some people are hiding behind a valuable freedom of speech in order to create conflict between communities. And unfortunately, these people come either from the extreme right in Europe or from some very, very, very minority groups within the Muslim community.
Well, we've seen the Muslim fury worldwide now, certainly on many different continents, and tens of thousands reacting to this anti-Islam film. And now we have the press putting out this caricature of the Prophet Mohammed. Something tells me these protests are far from over. Pierre Guerlain, a professor of political science at Paris West University, Nanterre La Défense. Thanks for coming on RT today.
You're welcome.